Breaking news, multiple law enforcement officials now telling CNN that the suspect arrested in connection with the D.C. pipe bombs case has been identified as Brian Cole Jr. of Woodbridge, Virginia. Take a look at this. These are live pictures of law enforcement searching the suspect's home. The arrest follows an almost 5-year probe to identify the suspect, who has only been seen in grainy surveillance video shrouded in a hoodie, gloves, and face mask. Joining us now, the former Deputy FBI Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst, Andrew McCabe. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. What do you think the significance of this is, and what could have led to the arrest?
Well, it's hugely significant, Wolf. It was a major attempted violent act on the nation's capital and seemed to be at least circumstantially timed with an attack on the Capitol to stop the certification of the election. So when you put all these things together, this is a major crime that the FBI needed to solve. They did, I think, an incredible job by finding this person. You know, it's not easy to find one person in a nation of 330 million. But the FBI did what they do best. They stayed on this task and continued to whittle away at it for 5 years. And today we have an arrest. As for what was the lead that broke this open, we don't know that yet. Hopefully we'll learn more as the day goes on. But it was likely as a result of some constant going back to the file, constantly going back to the information they had and looking at that information in new ways. That can usually trigger some new leads, and fresh perspective on an old set of facts can often sometimes lead to the breaking open a case like that.
As you know, Andrew, some 5 years ago, law enforcement released a lot of the video of the suspect walking around Capitol Hill, especially near the Democratic National Committee headquarters, the Republican National Committee headquarters. Why did it take so long to ID the suspect and make this arrest?
As you know, Wolf, video capture has become one of the primary tools of law enforcement. We refer to it as kind of crowdsourcing the identification of someone we need to stop. In this case, however, they had a lot of things working against them. You can see from the video, because of the time of year it was, he was dressed in very kind of amorphous, bulky clothing. He was wearing a face mask and a hood. The face mask, of course, that was typical at the time during in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic. So the video, even though we had a video of the person, the video didn't include the sort of details that biometric software uses to identify people from photographs or videos. Those sorts of precise measurements about his face or his standing were, I think, probably hard for investigators, not available from this sort of very grainy, not too detailed video.
What do you expect the FBI is now doing with this person in custody? And what kind of charges do you anticipate will be filed eventually in this case?
Well, absolutely, Wolf. What they do at this point, this person is taken back to the FBI office and processed. That's basically sitting down with them and asking them basic questions about who they are, where they live, that sort of thing. Then they'll also make an effort to try to get this person to cooperate. If he's willing to waive his right to an attorney, then he can sign a form indicating that, and he can speak to the investigators and he can share with them what he did and why he did it, if he's inclined to do that. Many people do. It seems crazy, but the FBI has a lot of success with that. If he does not cooperate, the FBI needs to build this case based on forensic evidence, and you saw that from the live video outside his residence. Exactly what they're doing, they're going to pour through every inch of that house, and they're going to try to find anything they can to connect him to the actual devices that were recovered from the scene. We had two, one at the RNC and one at the DNC. And it's the forensics that ties him to those devices that will be the backbone of this case.
And because of the Miranda rights, he has a right to remain silent if that's what he decides to do. Andrew McCabe, thanks very much for your analysis.
You're now looking at live pictures from Woodbridge, Virginia, where it looks like investigators are not just searching the home, but the car of the man that they say planted pipe bombs outside of the DNC and RNC headquarters the night before the January 6th insurrection. Now, sources tell CNN the suspect was arrested today. It is, of course, almost 5 years later. I want to now bring in CNN's Evan Perez, who's at the Justice Department, where we expect the FBI Director and the Attorney General to give an update later this afternoon. Also joining us, former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis. Evan, I want to start with you. What are you hearing from your sources about how this went down?
Well, this arrest was made earlier today, and Dana, this is a case obviously that has really bedeviled the FBI. They've spent the last few years doing a lot of interviews, or hundreds of interviews. They have gone through tens of thousands of video clips. A lot of it, the problem with this investigation has been the grainy video, the surveillance video that you have shown there on our air. These are the clips the FBI has released trying to get people to call in tips. And really nothing worked until they brought in a new team earlier this year. And that's what led them to the arrest this morning of Brian Cole Jr. He's 30 years old in Woodbridge, Virginia. And the arrest happened, again, at the end of a long, tedious process. But this new team looked at some of the evidence that had been gathered over the years and developed some new leads, essentially, that led them to this point, Dana.
Real quick, Evan, staying with you, was it just fresh eyes from this new team? Was it AI, or do we not know yet?
Well, we know that it has to do with this new team that were brought in from elsewhere in the FBI. I'm told that there was an agent from the ATF that joined them as well. And really, it was just more new, fresh eyes because, again, the teams that have been looking at this over the last few years had really been at sort of a dead end. It was almost like they were looking at a cold case, which is extraordinary if you think about this, right? This is a thing that happened just a couple blocks away from the Capitol. When it happened, if you remember, Dana, it drew police away from the Capitol complex, which is why there's been so many conspiracies about whether or not the two things were linked and whether that was an intentional. We're going to hear a lot more about the suspect and about the charges that we anticipate in the next couple of hours from the Justice Department.
It's so fascinating, Commissioner Davis. It certainly seemed like a cold case, but it turns out they were working really, really hard for all these years.
That's true, Dana. If you look at the definition of a cold case, it's over 1 to 3 years old, and it is reinvigorated after all the leads have been run down. So I don't know if this technically defines a cold case, but it certainly is a case that the FBI has spent a lot of time on and a lot of dedication. And I cannot underestimate the importance of putting fresh eyes on a case like this. This is what led to the apprehension of Whitey Bulger here in Boston many years ago. Rick Delorier from the FBI resurrected the case, had new people look at it, and all of a sudden he was in custody. On this one, the video evidence is important, and it's usually the first place that you look. But also cell phone tower dumps are extremely important, and there can be thousands of pieces of data that need to be gone through from different locations in the city in the comparison of those things. And the other thing I'd like to say is that a lot of times these cases are cracked because someone says something. An estranged spouse or someone who was advised by the suspect that they were involved in it comes around years later, and sometimes just shaking the tree helps.
Yeah, and for our viewers who don't remember, you were leading the Boston Police Department during the tragic marathon bombing, and that manhunt lasted just 5 days. This, again, is nearly 5 years, totally different situations, totally different everything, but it kind of gives a little context or perspective into what we're seeing now.
Right, and it's all dependent on the quality of the evidence. We had very high quality photos that were easy to identify. That's not the case in this particular situation. And I know that they've looked at the shoe evidence, what types of footwear the suspect was wearing, how he or she walked, all sorts of sort of peripheral things that in a desperate attempt really to try to put the case together. So it wasn't for lack of trying that it's 5 years out. And 5 days is not a comment on the quality of the investigation. It's the quality of the evidence that we're able to get our hands on quickly.
Okay, Makes sense. Totally understood. Evan, thank you for your amazing reporting always. Ed Davis, thank you for your experience and your insight. Appreciate you both being here.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.